The name's Bond. Dennis Bond. Sorry. Welcome back to my channel, everyone. I hope you like the new background. And this has been a weird time for me. There really hasn't been anything that I want to see at the movie theaters. You know, I don't go see a movie in the theater unless I absolutely want to see it. And lately there just hasn't really been anything I want to see. And if it is something, it's a part of a franchise that I have to catch up on, and I haven't been caught up on it. So I've been kind of pestering myself. You know, I want to do a video. What type of video should I do? And lately I've been in a James Bond mood. I've rewatched some of the movies, and we've got very minor news in terms of the next James Bond movie. So I thought, why not from now until April of next year, when the next James Bond movie is going to be released. And in between my regular new release movies and side videos that I do, how about I do a series of James Bond videos in between my new release videos and side projects up until April when the new Bond movie comes out. And then when that one comes out, I'll review that one. Just to keep myself busy, and just because I've been having the urge to make a video, but I don't know what video to make. So I'm gonna start doing this alongside new release videos, side projects, yada yada. So we're gonna be starting with the big video. This is gonna be a long video, but I'll try to get it as short as I can. So this is gonna be the ranking of all the official James Bond movies. And just like all rankings, of course, these are all my personal opinions on this franchise. The James Bond franchise is so massive. There's 24 movies, a 25th one being made, 2 spin-off, well, not really spin-off, 2 unofficial movies, a TV broadcast of the first Casino Royale. There's such a gigantic lore with James Bond that really everyone has different opinions on it. And if someone does have the same opinion on one of the movies or more of the movies, it's going to be for different reasons. So that's what I love about this franchise. So just keep in mind while I'm ranking these movies, these are my opinions. Your least favorite might be at the top, your most favorite might be on the bottom, who knows? Let's keep this professional. All right, like always, let me know at the end of the video your ranking of the James Bond movies, or your top 5, top 10, whatever you want to list down in the comment section, and let's have some fun. And one more thing before I get going, I'm not going to give full synopsis of the movies because I'd be here for hours. I'm just going to list the movie, give my quick thoughts on it, quick little things I want to mention about the movie, and then move on to the next one. Because like I said, there's 24 movies I got to get through. So, with everything being said, let's get started with the bottom of the list. Starting off the bottom of the list for me is A View to a Kill. I really do not like this movie. This one was weird for me. When I was starting to collect all the James Bond movies, this was the last movie I had to get. And when I watched it, I had a hard time getting through it. And even now when I rewatch it, I can barely get through it. This movie for me is boring. James Bond, played by Roger Moore, he was really starting to age at this point. He was pushing 60, and Roger Moore himself even said, yeah, I was too old for this movie, and it really shows. The stunt doubles are very noticeable. The plot's just boring. It wastes Christopher Walken as a villain. He should have ended his run with Octopussy. And yeah, if they were gonna make this one, they should have brought in Timothy Dalton or another James Bond. But as for now, this is my least favorite Bond movie. Next is a movie that I actually really liked when I first saw it, but the more times I kept watching it, the more times it just got down to the list more. That's Quantum of Solace. Daniel Craig is my favorite James Bond, and this was one of the first Bond movies I saw. And like I said, when I saw it, I really liked it, but now when I watch it, I'm just baffled that they thought this movie could be better than Casino Royale. Casino Royale was such a big success with critics, audiences, financially, and Daniel Craig even said in one of the interviews that they have to make this movie better than Casino Royale. And yes, there was like some writer's strike or something. The script kept getting rewritten in between takes. It's everything I've been hearing about the behind the scenes stuff seemed like it was a really big mess. So of course, when you have a big mess of production, you're gonna have a mess of a movie. And that's what this movie is, a giant mess of a movie. Next up is The Man with the Golden Gun. I couldn't even get through this movie when I rewatched it. When I first saw it, I was just like, it was okay, but now I got so bored with this movie. I walked away from the movie like 5 or 6 times. This movie just bored the hell out of me. And that's because I think the filmmakers and producers, they didn't even know what they wanted for this movie. Roger Moore just came off of Live and Let Die, his first Bond movie, and they weren't sure what direction to take him. And the producers had different opinions on what they wanted the franchise to be. One of them wanted him to be more like Sean Connery. The other one wanted him to be his own Bond. Another movie that ended up just being a mess behind the scenes, and it shows on camera. And yeah, your villain in the movie is Christopher Lee, one of the greatest actors of all time, and he's actually one of the cousins of Ian Fleming, the writer of the James Bond novels. And he's good in the movie overall. I just don't really care about his plan that much. This movie bored me, and I could barely get through it. Next up, hardcore Bond fans knew this was going to be coming. Die Another Day. Oh my god, this movie's embarrassingly bad. Poor Pierce Brosnan, he had one great movie, Goldeneye, and then Tomorrow Never Dies and The World Is Not Enough. Those were just okay, but Die Another Day? What the hell happened? This went back to the very campy, over-the-top Roger Moore era, and it boosted it to like a 50 million%. Oh my god, they really didn't know what to do with this one, and it really shows. The only good thing is that Pierce Brosnan still owns it as Bond. Halle Berry's good, although she does have some really awkward line delivery. The movie looks great, the CGI is really bad, and yeah, this is another mess of a movie. These first couple Bond movies on my list, I've noticed, they're just giant messes. However, there is a positive with Die Another Day. You can watch it in the so bad it's entertaining or even so bad it's good realm, but even that, James Bond isn't supposed to be so bad it's good. It should just be good. Yeah, not a fan of Die Another Day. Coming in at number 20 is You Only Live Twice, the first Sean Connery movie on my list. Look, I don't know what it is with this movie. This movie has really good moments, but then it has some really, well, terrible moments. I've tried so many times to watch the Bond movies in order from Dr. No all the way to Spectre, and I don't know why. Whenever I get to You Only Live Twice, I just can't make it through this movie. And when I do watch the movie all the way through, it's like, okay, I'm into what's going on, and then I'm like, okay, you lost me. Oh, I'm back on track. Okay, this is great. You lost me. And I think one of those problems have to do was Sean Connery himself. He's giving a very bland performance. He looks like he doesn't even want to be in this movie. And that's because the whole thing with behind the scenes, he felt he wasn't getting enough privacy. He was pissed off at the producers. So he basically said, I'm phoning it in. And he quit after this movie. Another behind the scenes things that really showed on screen, and another one I can barely get through. Coming in at number 19 is a movie that I could get through okay, but not as much more than the previous one, and that's Diamonds Are Forever. These last two Connery ones, yeah, you can really tell in his performance and in the filmmaking itself that he just didn't want to be in this movie. After You Only Live Twice, they brought on another James Bond actor, which I'll get to his movie later on. But that movie financially didn't do good. Critically, it didn't do good. They wanted Sean Connery back, so he ended up quitting, and they brought back Sean Connery, and what we got is just an okay movie. He does give a little bit of a better performance than he did in You Only Live Twice, but still, just watching him, you just know that there's something wrong. He doesn't look like he fully wants to be here. The first 3 movies he did, even 4 movies, he gave an amazing performance, and after that, he was just kind of like, yeah, I'm here. He basically just came back for paychecks, and unfortunately, it shows on screen. Next up, a lot of fans are gonna be shocked, maybe, to see this one so low on the list, and that's Thunderball. I know a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people online, I actually know some people that really love Thunderball. And I actually really loved it when I first saw it, but the past couple times I watched it, I don't know, the previous movie Goldfinger was like up here, like it's at top of the level. And then it's kind of like a Quantum of Solace thing. They try to make it bigger and better than Goldfinger, and then ended up just going like way down here almost. Great moments, really great moments, and one of those great moments is another solid, awesome performance by Sean Connery. The story's really good. The underwater stuff, however, is kind of boring. And there's this whole thing behind the scenes with Kevin McClory, who sued Ian Fleming because he stole plot ideas that he had for a James Bond movie, which ended up being Thunderball. This whole gigantic mess behind the scenes. And I think that kind of affected the filmmaking process, because there's just moments in the movie where I'm into it, and all of a sudden I'm just like, wait, what? What are you doing? What's happening? It's weird. It's an okay movie. I know a lot of people love this movie, but I guess I'm just not a fan of this one. Now we've gotten to the movies that are just okay for me. I can get through them. They have issues, but I can't say they're great. And starting that one off is Octopussy. When I first saw this movie, I basically had the same reaction. It's good. Roger Moore's good. The story is good. It feels more thriller-ish, more espionage-ish. Is that a word? It is now. Than the previous Bond movies. And I liked it. A lot of it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. I guess this is another one I had trouble getting through. What's the best part of this movie, of course, is Roger Moore. He's really good in the role. Him and Maud Adams, who was actually in The Man with the Golden Gun with him. For some reason, I love watching the two of them on screen together. I know she's not playing the same character from The Man with the Golden Gun, but her being back in this movie, I think, helped the movie. There's some great action sequences in this movie. There's some pretty boring moments in this movie, too. And I know a lot of people completely shit on Octopussy, but for me, I can sit down and watch it, and I'm fine with it. Next at number 16 is possibly one of the weirdest Bond movies we've ever gotten, and that's Moonraker. I don't know how accurate this one is to the book. I'll be honest, I haven't read the James Bond books. I've only read Casino Royale, but I haven't read the other ones. And I really loved this movie when I first saw it. And now I view it as kind of like Die Another Day. So bad, it's entertaining. Like a lot of the previous ones I mentioned, there's some really great moments in it. On top of that, there's a lot of over-the-top funny moments. A lot of these Roger Moore movies really utilized over-the-top moments. Which, by the way, sidetrack, isn't what James Bond is supposed to be, but whatever. You gotta take what you can get. And there's some really entertaining stuff in this movie, but just like some of the other movies, there's some really boring moments too. I'm glad they brought back Jaws. I love Jaws. He is one of my favorite characters in this entire franchise. He's a 7 foot tall, muscular man with metal teeth. He doesn't say anything. He's great. I love him. I'm so glad they brought him back for this one. And again, this movie's just okay. On with number 15 is Tomorrow Never Dies, the first Pierce Brosnan one on my list. I was disappointed with this one when I first saw it, because I really liked Goldeneye. And when Goldeneye came out, it was a massive hit. But then Tomorrow Never Dies came along, and similar to Quantum of Solace, they tried to make this one bigger and better, and it ended up just being okay. I love the villain in this movie. I really love the villain. He's over the top in the right way, but serious when he needs to be. And he blended it in really well. The henchman's kind of A lot of people judge the villain with also the villain henchman. And the henchman's okay. He's no Jaws and he's no Oddjob, but I love the villain. The villain henchman's okay. Pierce Brosnan's fantastic. You know, even in Die Another Day, his movies were just okay after Goldeneye, but he himself is just absolutely fantastic. I don't really like the female character that they brought back from Bond's past. It just seems like they were trying to force something that wasn't really needed. I don't know. This one's a mixed bag for me. Very similar to Octopussy. I can just watch it and I'd be fine with it. Next at number 14 is the first Roger Moore movie, Live and Let Die. Really quickly, I love the theme song from Paul McCartney and Wings. Sometimes I'll just put in the movie just to see the opening titles, and hear the opening title theme song. And then we get to another just okay Bond movie. Roger Moore, I don't really care for him too much in this movie. And I can't really blame himself for that, or really the producers, because they had a tough situation. Sean Connery left after Diamonds Are Forever, and they casted Roger Moore, and they didn't know what to do with him. They didn't know what direction to take him, because people were expecting Sean Connery, but Roger Moore didn't want to do Sean Connery. He wanted to do something a little bit different, and he was just finding his footing in. So I can't really blame them too much because they didn't know what to do with him. So yeah, he's, like I said, he's okay. The villain is really cool. I really love the villains. His plot is kind of weird, but I get a kick out of it. You know, this is one of the better Roger Moore movies, and yeah, I kind of like this one. It's not great, but this is one of the first ones where I could just sit down and just say, yes, I will gladly watch Live and Let Die. Next is The World Is Not Enough, the third Pierce Brosnan movie, and what I consider the best one since Goldeneye. Look, these second and third Pierce Brosnan movies, the plots are kind of convoluted, just a little bit, and this one is still kind of convoluted. A little bit less than Tomorrow Never Dies, though, and, you know, I don't really care about the plot, really. I mean, and that's kind of a downfall, because, you know, if you don't care about the plot, you don't care about what James Bond is doing. But James Bond himself, like I said, Pierce Brosnan, he's fantastic. The plot can be absolute garbage, and I'll still watch it just for Pierce Brosnan. Really quick, I want to mention Denise Richards as Dr. Christmas Jones, one of the second Bond girl. She's absolutely terrible. I don't like Denise Richards as an actress. She's a beautiful woman, beautiful to look at, a terrible actress. In fact, I was watching a YouTube video, and they were going to cast her in one of the Halloween movies, and one of the producers said, no, she's nothing but boobs. Which is true. And just seeing her play the scientist character in this movie, it just, what? Who thought that was a good idea? I just wanted to get that out of there. I think she's the worst Bond girl to date. I really don't like her. But the rest of the movie, I kind of like. The World Is Not Enough. Next at number 12 is From Russia with Love. Now, here's where the movies get really good for me, because I really love From Russia with Love. There is some great moments in this movie. Sean Connery is absolutely fantastic. The train sequence is my favorite part of the movie. I can't pronounce the Bond girl's name, but she's absolutely beautiful and gives another great performance. The reason why it's a little bit lower on my list is because, well, it's kind of interesting and weird to explain, because these first two Bond movies, Dr. No and From Russia with Love, they're great in their own rights. It's just that after Goldfinger, we've established James Bond formula, and each movie improves upon the James Bond formula in some sort of way that we've become accustomed to it. These first two movies, they were just starting to figure out the 007 formula. And I don't know, like, I really like the movie, but because we've established 007 formula after Goldfinger, there's just other movies I prefer after it. However, whenever I do watch From Russia with Love, I'm having a great time. It's a great entry, but just don't expect it to be amazingly great, if you get my meaning. Speaking of the first two Bond movies, next up is Dr. No. Now, when you watch, let's say you watch Live and Let Die, and then you watch Dr. No. Dr. No is honestly pretty different than the other Bond movies. You know, there's no pre-title sequence like the other Bond movies. It opens up with the gun barrel sequence, but then goes right into the opening credits. And then we don't meet James Bond until a few minutes into the movie. We're introduced to all sorts of characters. And then we meet James Bond. His introduction in Dr. No, fantastic. Connery nailed it in this one. He nailed it, like I said, in his first four movies, but this one, like when he first says Bond, James Bond, in the casino, you're just like, oh my goodness, that What? I don't know what that was. I'm sorry. Point is, he's fantastic in this movie, and I really like the villain, Joseph Wiseman, I think his name is. I didn't look at the credits at the end of the movie. He's mysteriously menacing without being over the top menacing. When you're listening to him talk, you're like, you've got an evil plan and I don't want to mess with you. But he seems so quiet and so professional-wise. There's a lot of great moments in this movie, just like all the other Bond movies I mentioned, but unfortunately, it's similar to From Russia with Love. After Goldfinger, we've established 007 formula, and there's just the other movies I prefer over these ones. But again, it's a great movie, and I love watching it. Coming in at number 10 is what I think the most underrated Roger Moore movie is, For Your Eyes Only. I know a lot of people that really hate this movie. I really enjoy this movie because here's why. Moonraker, which was the movie before For Your Eyes Only, was really over the top. All these Roger Moore movies before For Your Eyes Only was over the top in some way. This was the first Roger Moore movie, and really the only one, that was really grounded, really kind of gritty, and felt more realistic, and didn't really have much over the top moments. And I really like the dark and gritty James Bond. Like, the over-the-top one's fine, I can watch it, but seeing how the character is supposed to be dark and gritty just makes the experience better for me. And I really like Roger Moore in this movie. This is probably my favorite performance from Roger Moore. The Bond girl, fantastic. Yeah, not much I could say about For Your Eyes Only, but I really like it. Next up is On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Now, this was the Bond actor that first took over Sean Connery. After You Only Live Twice, Sean Connery quit. They needed a new actor, so they brought in George Lazenby, who basically conned his way into the franchise. And he only did one movie because apparently he didn't want to do any more after that. I thought he got fired, but he only wanted to do one more. This movie is honestly great. There's a lot of old school filming in the movie that kind of detract for me a little bit. But besides that, the movie's fantastic. And another thing that detracts the movie for me, unfortunately, is George Lazenby himself. He's not an actor. He's come out and said, I'm not an actor, but I want to be James Bond. And his performance is so wooden, so stale. The opening sequence where he's chasing the Bond girl is great. You know, he's chasing her in his Aston Martin. She gets to a beach. He follows her. She goes into the ocean, and he follows her. He runs after her and like brings her to shore. But when he says, "My name is Bond, James Bond," something got lost inside me after that when I heard it. I was just like, yeah, okay, you're not Sean Connery though. I don't know, this movie honestly would have been top 5 material for me if it wasn't for Lazenby's wooden performance. The rest of the movie's fantastic, and the ending, not going to spoil the ending, had me in tears. Fantastic ending. It wasn't overdrawn. It was perfect. All right, let's get controversial. Next on number 8 is Spectre. I can hear you guys complaining right now. Why is Spectre number 8? Spectre sucks. Worst Bond movie ever. There's a lot of people that hate Spectre. I don't know why. Every time, I just watched it a couple days ago, and I love it. I don't care. Screw it. I love this movie. I get that there's problems with it. I get that it kind of betrays certain things that have been established in other Bond movies, particularly Blofeld, but I don't know. Every time I watch it, I just have so much fun with it. Daniel Craig is, of course, fantastic in the role. Léa Seydoux is amazingly gorgeous in this movie, and she kills it as the Bond girl. My only real issues with the movie are the fact that they're trying to mix these 4 Daniel Craig movies into one movie. It didn't always work, but for me, there were some moments that kind of did work. And Christoph Waltz was an amazing pick for Blofeld, but they chose to portray him in a very bland way. I don't know why. When I think of Blofeld, I don't think of a really bland actor. Maybe if he's in the next movie, maybe he'll grow more into the character. Maybe it's kind of like a Roger Moore thing. You know, his first movie, he wasn't sure what to do with the character. I don't know, but besides that, I don't get the hate. I really love this movie. Coming in at number 7 is another Bond movie I think is underrated. The Living Daylights, the first Timothy Dalton movie. I'm going to get this out of the way right now. I absolutely love Timothy Dalton as James Bond. He really understands the character. He took away the campiness that Roger Moore did, and he basically said, look, I want to bring justice to the character that's written in the books. And the character that's written in the books is very dark, very gritty, emotionally damaged. He doesn't give a shit about anyone. He's a cold-blooded assassin. And I felt that with his performance, especially in The Living Daylights. The plot of the movie is the plot of the movie is okay. I don't really care for the villain. The villainous schemes kind of, it's whatever. But what makes this movie for me, and what makes the movie great for me to watch, is Timothy Dalton. Again, just like all the other movies, there's great sequences in this movie, and I love watching this movie, but it's Timothy Dalton that brings me back to this movie, just watching his performance on screen. And the fact that he was the first Bond to do most of his own stunts. You know, Sean Connery and Roger Moore, they kind of use stunt doubles most of the time, but you can see on camera that Timothy Dalton is doing like 80 or 90% of his stunts. He was really dedicated in the role, and he really makes this movie for me. Next is another movie that I absolutely love, and it's Roger Moore's best Bond movie, The Spy Who Loved Me. This movie, besides just a few minor issues, it's a perfect Bond movie. It's got everything you want. It's got a great Bond, Roger Moore. I take it back. This is his best performance as James Bond. It's got a great Bond girl. It's got a great Bond car. It's got great Bond locations. A great final act of the movie. It's one of my favorite final acts of the movie. How the villain died was kind of, okay, whatever. We got introduced to Jaws in this movie. I love Jaws. Yeah, I can't really, I'm mixing my words around because I can't fathom enough how much I really love The Spy Who Loved Me. It's easily Roger Moore's best movie. Okay, now we're at top 5 territory. Now these are the Bond movies that I'm excited to talk the most about because these movies to me are all 5-star material. I love with a passion every single one of these movies. And we're starting with Goldeneye, Pierce Brosnan's first Bond movie. This movie is phenomenal. You know, there was a 6-year gap from License to Kill to Goldeneye, and they were originally supposed to bring back Timothy Dalton, but he said he didn't want to do anymore. He felt he got a little too old for the role, which I respect that. I would have loved to have seen more movies from him, but he knew when to quit as Bond, and I respect that. We got Pierce Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan kills it as this character. He wasn't like Roger Moore, where he didn't know what to do with the character. He wasn't wooden like George Lazenby. He knew what to do from the second he set foot on set. And God, this movie is fantastic. It's got a great Bond villain. It's got a great Bond girl. Actually, 2 Bond girls. One of them's a henchwoman. They're both fantastic. The locations are great. The only thing I don't like is the score. I don't know why they chose to do the score like they did, but it was just kind of, it could have been done better. Besides that, this movie is absolutely fantastic. Next is what, in my opinion, is the most underrated James Bond movie ever, and that's License to Kill, Timothy Dalton's second and unfortunately final performance as James Bond. God, I love Timothy Dalton as Bond. He was so good. He wasn't appreciated at the time because of what Roger Moore did. You know, again, Roger Moore was very campy, over the top, but Timothy Dalton really took the character and pounded it down in reality. And this is his best movie by far. This movie is violent as hell. The first PG-13 Bond, and it owns it. It really utilized that PG-13 rating. There's a scene in the movie where a guy's leg is ripped off by a shark, and you see it. This movie did not hold back. and it played to the movie's advantage. I saw an interview on the 007 documentary, Everything or Nothing, and someone said something like, if you want a real, true representation on who the character James Bond is that Ian Fleming wrote in the novels, watch License to Kill. And I support that 100%. I just wish Timothy Dalton would have done more Bond movies. He was so good, but we've got the 2 movies he did, and at least we got that. Coming up at number 3 is Goldfinger, the best Sean Connery movie. This movie's perfect. This is the perfect Bond movie. They established the 007 formula, and they went all out with it. They basically paved the way for the rest of the James Bond movies. I seriously don't have any faults with this movie. Everything is fantastic. Sean Connery does his best in the movie. This is his best performance. Goldfinger as a villain has a great plan, and he's a great villain. The Bond girls are great and sexy. The car is great. The locations are great. The opening title's great. Everything is great in this movie. I seriously don't have any faults with this movie. Every time I watch it, I just feel like I just completed something amazing, and I have such a big smile on my face when this movie ends. Goldfinger's absolutely fantastic, and it makes the number 3 spot on my list. There just happens to be 2 more movies that I personally enjoy more. At the number 2 spot, the runner-up is Skyfall. I remember seeing Skyfall opening night with 2 friends of mine, and the theater went nuts. Like, this movie, after Quantum of Solace, fans wanted James Bond in a more traditional style. But there's a problem with that. They already established what Daniel Craig's Bond is. Very dark, very gritty. You know, they ditched all the gadgets in Casino Royale and even Quantum of Solace. They really grounded him in reality. But fans wanted a more formulaic Daniel Craig movie, and I think they nailed it with this. They added more gadgets. They brought back Q. Daniel Craig is fantastic in this movie. Basically, take everything I said about Goldfinger and put it into this one. Because I'm really stirring my words here. I'm trying to figure out the right words to say. But basically, with Goldfinger and Skyfall, I view them as the same. Javier Bardem is, oh my God, one of the best Bond villains of all time. And leaving the theater, I said to myself, this movie is going to go down as one of the best James Bond movies ever. And my friends were like, oh, you're just saying it because you just saw the movie and you really liked it. Nope. What is it? 7 years later, it's one of the best Bond movies of all time. Okay, number 1. My absolute favorite James Bond movie. Now, the next Bond movie could take the number 1 spot. It's a possibility. But for right now, my favorite James Bond movie is Casino Royale, the very first Bond story adapted to modern times. I don't care that this movie took away the Bond gadgets. I don't care that this movie took away the character of Q. The 007 formula in this movie is either mixed around or taken out completely in the movie, but I don't mind it because this was not only a great Bond movie, but a great movie in general. And it's still my favorite action movie of all time. Daniel Craig is my favorite James Bond, and this is his best performance he's given as the character. He basically took Timothy Dalton's representation of Bond and brought it back into the Bond series. And it's more accepted nowadays because we're used to dark, gritty movies. You know, we weren't really used to them back then, especially in Bond movies, but it's more praised now. And rewatching this movie, I absolutely love it. I've gone more depth into this movie because I reviewed this movie a couple years ago. If you want more in depth of some of these movies, they're on a playlist on my channel, so go check it out. But still, all these years later, number 1 is still Casino Royale. Now, as smart eye may notice that I didn't count the unofficial James Bond movies. The 1967 Casino Royale, the 1954 Casino Royale, and 1983's Never Say Never Again. That's because I just wanted to include the ones in the official James Bond series. Maybe I'll talk about those movies in the future for future videos, but for this ranking, I just wanted to do the official James Bond movies. So This video is going to take forever to edit, but that's my official ranking on all 24 James Bond movies. Do you agree with this list? Do you disagree with this list? Like I said in the beginning, let's keep it professional, and let me know your rankings in the comment section below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'm excited to do more of these Bond videos as time goes on, and I'm really excited for James Bond 25. Anyway, if you like this video, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, click right here, and I'll see you guys next time.